Hi, everyone. This is Haggie, Colleen, and we have with us tonight Nick St. Clair. You know him in the chat room as Ecotort, and he's live from the UK. So, hi, Nick.
Hi, Colleen. Thanks for this. I'm in a service station on the A40 just outside London in a tow truck with a bus on the back. Because I've got 4 or 5 different jobs today, and I normally only get 1 or 2, and I'm still working late, so I stopped and pulled over. So we're live from a service station tonight, which is maybe quite appropriate. A petrol station, gas station, fracking, oil industry. I'm not against technology. I'm not against oil. I'm not against petrol or gasoline, but I am against excessive use of these things for the wrong purposes, or what I consider to be the wrong purposes. And we're using far too much of it. As a result, large areas of countryside in America are already polluted. The underground water supply is polluted from fracking. And if they get their way in this country, they want to frack 60% of the UK, of the surface area of this country, which, because of the nature of the rock they're drilling into, the shale rock, it's a tight shale. It's like a clay. It's very, very fine grained. It's like dust. And the oil and the gas that are trapped in that clay is formed when a river reaches the sea and it drops, dust onto the bottom of the river. And along with the dust is mixed with animal and vegetable products, which turn into oil and gas over millions of years. But it's a very, very fine rock, which means that unlike with conventional drilling, where you've got like pebbles and stones in the rock, which means there are gaps between the stones and the pebbles in the rock, and the oil can percolate through the rock and actually gather in a certain place, wherever an oil field happens to be. And they'll drill just down vertically into that oil field, and then they'll frack there. Now, that type of fracking, just in a vertical shaft, has been going on since 1920. And the fracking industry is trying to tell us that they've been fracking for over 100 years or nearly 100 years, and it's perfectly safe. Well, it isn't perfectly safe, and in fact, it's perfectly unsafe. And the technology they're using now is far different to what they used in 1920, although it's still called fracking. Fracking is injecting high-pressure fluids into rock, and also, along with the fluid, are little particles of sand, usually, which get into the cracks and keep the cracks open when the fluid is gone. And then the gas and the oil can escape from the rock because the cracks have been opened. In a vertical well, the vertical well goes down into the oil field, and the pressure of the rock on top of the oil field is what forces the oil out of the hole. It's like a pimple. If you squeeze a pimple on your face, it squirts. It's not a very nice thing to say, but that's how it works. It's the pressure of the rock pressing down on top. Once you drill a hole into it, that oil down below, the pressure of the rock sitting on top of it is what forces the oil to come up the hole, which is why you get an oil geyser or a gas flare. It's because of the pressure of the rock on top. So they drill a hole, a vertical hole, and they drop a steel pipe down the hole. And the object of the steel pipe is obviously to bring the oil or the gas up to the surface from where it is down below up to the surface. Now, that hole that they drill has to be bigger than the steel pipe. If it's the same size, if it were the same size, the pipe would get stuck when they're trying to lower it down that hole. So the hole has to be bigger, and it's quite substantially bigger. If it's a 6-inch pipe, for example, it's going to be a 9-inch hole, roughly speaking. So you've got a 3-inch, inch and a half all the way around the outside of that steel pipe. If the steel pipe was concentric with the hole, there'd be an 1.5 inch gap all the way around the outside of that steel pipe. So they drill down and they go through the aquifer. In 90% of the cases in this country where they're drilling, they're going through the aquifer, which is the underground water supply, which is about 100 to 200 meters down. They go down, they keep going down, they go through the aquifer. It makes it a bit muddy. They keep going down. They go down about 1 kilometer, maybe even 2 kilometers down. It's quite deep, this oil. And when they hit the oil and the gas down the bottom of that hole, it shoots up that pipe, up that hole rather, and forms an oil geyser or a gas flare, like I said. So they drop a steel pipe down, and the pipe is supposed to carry the oil and the gas up to the surface. But obviously the oil and the gas is not only going to go up the middle of the pipe, it's going to go up that gap around the outside. And if you've gone through the aquifer, the oil and the gas is going to go straight in the aquifer. Well, they try to stop this happening by pumping a special kind of cement down the middle of the pipe. And it gets down to the end of the pipe, it turns around the corner, it comes back up the sides, and it's supposed to set and form a perfect seal and stop the oil and the gas going up the outside, up that gap and getting into the aquifer or getting to the surface. Am I being clear, Colleen? Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Yes, so I am.
Okay, good. So this cement seal, it fails at a known rate. The seal around the outside of the steel pipe, it fails at a known rate, and then the known rate is published by the industry. And the known rate is this: about 1 in 20 of those seals fails immediately. 1 in 10 has failed after a year, and after 20 years, 60% of them have failed, and they will all fail eventually. That cement is going to deteriorate. The steel of the pipe is going to rust. It's not stainless steel. It's a cheap old steel. It's not the cheapest of cheap steels, but it's certainly not the most expensive steel. It's, it's towards the bottom of the range of the qualities of steel.
And steel doesn't last forever anyway. I don't care how good it is.
No, even stainless steel won't last forever. I mean, it'll last a long time, but this is certainly not stainless steel. It's just normal, probably mild steel, maybe the slightly higher carbon content than mild steel, but not much. It's not a high quality steel. So, with the rock being a tight shale, like I said, it's instead of the oil or the gas, whatever they're after, being gathered in one place, it's everywhere in the rock. And as I said, 60% of this country has shale rock underneath it, which has got oil and gas in it, no doubt about it. But if they're going to get it out, they've got to drill everywhere in that rock. And at a certain number it works out at about between 8 and 10 wells per square mile. So 60% of this country at 8 to 10 wells per square mile, it works out at 480,000 holes they want to drill in the UK. Now, they won't be able to drill 480,000. Say they can drill 400,000 because there's going to be mountains in the way. There's going to be certain places where they can't drill for one reason or another. So they drill 400,000 holes. 5% of them, which is 20,000, will leak immediately. That cement seal will leak immediately, in 20,000 cases. 40,000, which is 10% of 400,000, will be leaking after a year. 60%, that's 240,000. You can probably say 250,000 wells will be leaking oil and gas into the United Kingdom aquifers after 20 years. And they will all leak eventually. All those 400,000, they will all leak eventually. Because if you imagine, when they extract the oil and the gas, they don't get every last little bit out. They do it until it's commercially not viable anymore, which means there's always going to be some left down there. And if you imagine the weight of the rock pressing down, as soon as that well starts to leak, which it will when the oil deteriorates, when the cement or the steel deteriorates to a certain degree, it will leak. That remaining oil or gas is going to be squeezed up that leaking well shaft into the aquifer, into the air at the top if it gets that far. But certainly it's going to go into the aquifer and it's going to pollute the aquifer. And so we can say that the UK aquifers will be polluted for the next 100 years with oil and gas. It's anybody's guess how long it's going to last before the last little drops have been squeezed out, but it's going to be over 20 years, and it's going to be, I could say it could easily be 100 years. And the entire state of Pennsylvania, where they've been fracking in America, don't let them kid you that they've only found 2 leaks or something. There's thousands of leaks, and they've all been reported, but the farmers have had deals where they've been told to be quiet, or they're going to get in trouble, or they've been paid lots of money to be quiet. There are thousands and thousands of leaks, and there's a website, pse.org, which is, I think it's, Colleen, I'm so sorry, I'm disorganized. I wanted to have all these links available. I think how can I do this? I'm on my phone in the middle of a garage. It's really difficult. Let's see if I can find the link. Yeah, PSE Healthy Energy. I'm sending it to you on Skype right now.
Okay.
Right. That's the main website. You'll have to look on it. I can't on my phone really realistically find the actual documents I'm looking for, but well integrity, reasons for wells to fail, searching those kind of terms on that website, we'll find it. Also, Dr. Anthony and Graphia on YouTube. Let me just see if I can find that quickly.
Okay.
This video is Dr. Anthony and Graphia. He has a degree in rock fracture mechanics at Cornell University in America, and he lectures in that subject. He's had 20 or 30 years experience developing the technology which they are now using in what they call modern fracking. Now, modern fracking is different in quite a few different ways from the original, just a simple frack in a vertical shaft. For a start, each well pad has multiple wells. There's probably 6 to 8 to 10 wells per well pad. If you've looked at the aerial photographs where they frack, there's like lots of little well pads everywhere and little roads in between them. It's like a measles all over the land. But each one of those well pads has got between 8 and 10 wells in it. So they're drilling lots of holes on each well pad. And those wells are deep. They are what are called deviant or deviated wells, which means they go from the vertical to more or less horizontal. They follow the shale rock. This is another issue, why the cement seals fail, because the shale rock, in the diagrams they show you, the little cartoon diagrams, the shale is perfectly flat, and the drill comes down simply and it turns at 90 degrees and it goes along perfectly flat. Well, the shale isn't perfectly flat, obviously. It's going to go up and down underneath the ground. Now, they can drill very accurately with the technology they have. They reckon they can, at a depth of 1 or 2 kilometers, if there was a house down there, they reckon they could drill in through the front door and out through the back door, so they can get it within a couple of feet of where they want it. So they're going to follow that shale rock. The object of the fracking is to frack within the shale rock, because the shale rock's what carries the oil and the gas. So they're going up and down, and while they're drilling that pipe, and then they're pushing that steel pipe through the hole they've drilled horizontally, more or less horizontally, up and down, wave. It's like a wave. It goes up and down. And then they're pumping cement along the end of that horizontal pipe, and it comes back along the horizontal pipe around the outside of that pipe, around that gap. And it's supposed to fill all that gap up as well as not just the vertical part, but the horizontal part. Now, if you imagine, a part of the wave where it's a crest of the wave, where it's going up and then down again, at the top of that crest, there's going to be an airlock. There's going to be no cement. The cement is not going to fill the top of that. It's like the Loch Ness Monster. Am I being clear, Colin? Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes, I am.
Okay, that's great. Well, basically then, after they've fractured the rock, the oil and the gas can basically find its way up to the surface any way it can. And it does. They found gas leaking up into streams 3,000 feet away from the nearest well, which wasn't leaking before they started drilling. So if that gas is getting up from a kilometre down underneath the ground and coming up in a stream 3,000 feet away from the nearest well, it's not only going to come up in that stream, it's going to be coming up anywhere it can, anywhere from right next to the well to 3,000 feet away. And the only place you can see it is where it comes up through a stream. The people at PSE Healthy Energy have been initiating surveys of the land to see. They've got much more sensitive equipment now for detecting methane gas, which is coming up through the land. Everywhere where they drill, it's coming up through the land. That's why the cows are getting sick, children are getting sick. It's not just coming up through the cement seal of the vertical part of the well, which is what I started talking about. It's coming up everywhere. It's leaking. The whole place is leaking. It's the gas coming up everywhere. And any gas that gets to the surface, if it's come up from below, it's gone through the aquifer, right? So the aquifers, which is the underground water supply. Now, these facts are known to the industry. In law, in common law, to knowingly injure another person or knowingly damage another person's property is criminal. So I'm saying that fracking is a crime because it is known injury. It's been done to anybody who's drinking water that comes from an aquifer, which is, in this country, 60% of our water supply comes from the aquifers.
I agree.
We will have no fresh water, Colleen. I mean, people are talking about carbon dioxide and global warming as a result of drilling the extra oil out of the ground, but that's a minor consideration, to be honest. We will have no fresh water. And I think that's being done intentionally in order to jack the price of water up, because the last bits of oil are being drilled out of the ground now. Oil is no longer going to be the petrodollar. It'll be the water dollar, or whatever currency is in vogue at the time. You know, it's not going to be petrol.
Yeah, I thought about that when T. Boone Pickens said years ago that water is the new oil. And I was concerned then that they were going to try and purposefully pollute all the water so that you have to buy it at least now, decent water, about $2 a bottle. A lot of the stuff they sell as bottled water, supposed to be pure, isn't. So to get the higher qualities, you have to pay more money. And I'm like, man, you know, if they're going to find something that everybody has to have, other than air and food, the main thing is water.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, food and water, they're going to find it hard to tax the air, but...
Well, I don't know. Not if they, keep on polluting the air and you have to use an oxygen tank to go outside. Yeah.
I was actually a part of the crew in a film called Fresh Air, a short film called Fresh Air, which played on that particular issue, that people had to buy fresh air from a canister in a vending machine in the middle of London. And there was different flavours of fresh air. And one of them was called Hampstead Heath, which is a lovely place in London where you can, it's one of the wildest places in London. It's a wild wood, basically. And so this guy was like running across Hampstead Heath, being chased by men in white coats, and finally collapsed and wakes up in the middle of the city by this vending machine where these canisters have been discarded with a little bit of air left in, and it's obviously an offence criminal offence to pick up somebody's discarded thing. You're supposed to pay for it. So he's picked up a discarded one, and they've caught him. And it ends up he wasn't running on Hampstead Heath at all. He was pretending, he thought he was running, but he was actually just crouched down by this vending machine in the city with all the traffic, where the pollution was. Terrible little film. It's a short film I was in. But yeah, I mean, certainly water and food, they're doing their best to pollute the food with the genetically modified food and chemicals and everything. But this is all being done knowingly or intentionally, which makes it criminal. Now, in practical terms, how to bring about change, I believe that we have to educate the police and the armed forces and the intelligence services of the world about what's happening and of the criminal nature of what's happening, because then they might just stop it. They live on the same planet and so do their kids. That's the only way forward I can see. And unfortunately, most of the environmental movement is campaigning against the police and against the armed forces and antagonizing them to the point where there's animosity between the environmental movement and the armed forces and the police. And this is really counterproductive as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a friend of the police or an enemy. I don't like what they're doing. They're supporting a system which I disapprove of and which is, as far as I'm concerned, criminal. But I've talked to enough coppers in my life, and in fact, there's two of them looking at me right now in a car they've just pulled in, wondering what I'm doing on the phone in the truck in the service station. Anyway, I could actually, well, I don't think I will, but I could actually go and talk to them and ask them what their opinion is about these matters and have it live on the show, maybe another time. But the point is, their main job is to protect life and property and to uphold the law. Well, they're not protecting life and property. They're protecting the lives and the properties of people who are destroying the planet, and they're upholding unlawful legislation made by criminal governments allowing multinational companies to destroy the planet, which they're doing the exact opposite of what they're paid to do. And did you see the poster that I just sent you, Colleen, about eco-activists?
Yes, and I'm posting it in the chat room.
Right. Well, take Standing Rock, for example. There were how many arrests? 70 arrests, or was it 700 arrests?
Oh, no, it was upward nearly 800 last I heard. But then there's at least 500 in Iowa been arrested as well.
I mean, have you read that poster? Have you seen it before, maybe?
Yes, I've seen it before.
I've been posting that around everywhere because I think if we can get a court case, let's imagine a court case now, right, where we've got some activists and they've been arrested for, say, Standing Rock, which is eco-activism, right? And we call a police officer into the witness stand. And we ask the police officer a simple question. In your opinion, officer, which is more serious, the threat of environmental damage taken as a whole on this planet or the threat of world war? And he's going to say, well, I don't know, sir. It's a very difficult question to answer. We're going to agree with him. We're going to say, yes, it's difficult to answer for two reasons. Firstly, it's difficult to answer because the two threats are very different. It's like trying to compare chalk and cheese, which one's more serious. And the second reason it's difficult to answer that question is because they're of a similar magnitude. The threat of environmental damage is of a similar magnitude to the threat of world war. Would you not agree? Here they come. The police are coming now. I should ask them which is more serious. I should ask them and get a direct quote. But I'm not going to. Maybe I should. But anyway, the police officer in the witness stand has to agree that the threat of environmental damage is of a similar magnitude to the threat of world war. They can't really disagree. And having established that point, we can then establish that the most serious threat to life and property is environmental damage. And in terms of law, knowingly injuring your neighbour, well, there are 7 billion people on this planet. Possibly 3 billion are going to work every day knowingly damaging and destroying the planet, which they live on themselves, which their family live on, who they love and they're trying to support, and which their neighbour lives on. And if 3 billion people going to work knowingly injuring their neighbour is not the most serious breach of the law, I'll eat every policeman's hat in the world for my breakfast tomorrow morning. So, according to the police duty, which is to protect life and property and to uphold the law, they should all be committed environmental campaigners. There's no question about it. And looking at it on the other side, anyone who is an environmental campaigner is protecting life and property from the most serious threat to life and property and upholding the law for the most serious breach of the law. So how can you be arrested for upholding the police oath? I mean, if we could take that case, I've been trying for years to get people in this country to take it up. No one wants to do it. But imagine 100 people or 1,000 people or 500 people, how many people have been arrested at Standing Rock? They've all been arrested for protecting life and property and upholding the law. So if we could win that case, that we've been arrested for upholding the police oath, then the police force would have to make a decision whether they want to carry on upholding unlawful legislation made by a criminal government allowing multinational companies to damage and destroy the planet, or do they want to turn around and make some arrests and make their mothers proud of them? And this is the only way forward that I can see in practical terms where we can win. I can't see another way. We can't fight against the police. If we fight against the police, even if we won against the police, they'd call the army in and they'd have justification to do so. So we can't, it's ridiculous. We have to learn to cooperate.
Right.
Am I still making?
Oh, yeah. I agree. You know, I was just reading in this website I found about how fracking pollutes the air.
Right.
And it says that fracking can release dangerous petroleum hydrocarbons, including benzene, toluene, and xylene.
Yeah.
And it can also increase ground-level ozone, a key risk factor for asthma and other respiratory illnesses. That the pollutants in the fracking water and the flowback fluid can enter the air when the wastewater is dumped into pits and then evaporates. The air pollution that's caused by fracking may contribute to other health problems in people living near natural gas drilling sites, according to a study by researchers with the Colorado School of Public Health. And yet, the corporations who obviously know all this, and the governments who are paid by the corporations, have decided that it's no big deal because, you know, they don't live there, so As you keep saying, it is criminal what is being done on a large scale.
It's heinous. It's criminally insane.
Yes.
Literally. It is. I mean, they must be doing it intentionally. They know this information. They must be doing it intentionally. It's not just reckless, it's intentional. And it carries a maximum life imprisonment. It's aggravated criminal damage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the legislation in America, but in this country we have the Criminal Damage Act.
We have it here too.
Right. Well, Section 1 of the Criminal Damage Act here says that if you damage or destroy another person's property without a lawful excuse, you commit an offence. The question is, what would be a lawful excuse to damage or destroy another person's property? But let's have an example. Let's say a house is on fire and someone's inside and someone kicks the door down to get someone out, to rescue them from the burning house. It is illegal to knock someone's door down, but it's lawful to do it in that circumstance. Okay, that's the difference between what's legal and what's lawful. Very simply. What's lawful is what's reasonable in the circumstance. Well, if we have a threat of environmental damage, which is as serious as a threat of world war, then ask ourselves what's reasonable in that circumstance. It's a much more serious threat than a house on fire with someone burning inside it. It is without shadow of doubt, it is reasonable to be an environmental activist. And a non-violent direct activism is lawful. There's no question about it. That's the difference between legal and lawful. And that's the whole point of British law. It's why British law is the best law in the world. I mean, it's not being enacted. It's not being used. People don't know about it. It's being hidden away. But these are the simple facts of law. Knowingly or intentionally injuring somebody is criminal, and reasonable behaviour is not criminal. That's really what it comes down to. Where can we go? I just think we have to just educate the police and the armed forces. Seriously, that's the way forward. And look at Standing Rock again as an example. All the vets that came, the veterans that turned up, 2,000, 4,000 veterans turned up, and there was supposed to be 10,000 ready to come. And unfortunately, they were turned away. The leadership of the Standing Rock tribe said to them, "You've done your job, now go home." Well, if they'd have stayed, that pipeline would not have been finished. Because the American government, I do not believe the American government could persuade American armed forces to fire upon veterans, which is what would have had to have happened in order to complete that pipeline had the veterans stayed there. How do you feel on that issue, Colleen? Do you think they would have fired on the veterans?
Honestly, yes, I think they would have.
You do?
Yeah. Because, they did the water cannons and all that kind of stuff on veterans. They arrested veterans. I think because so many of these police officers from different states and counties and cities that were out there seemed to be trained by the private security companies that used to be known as Blackwater. They have a lot of different names now. But right. They were training all of the officers that were out there, including the National Reserves, who were also out there. Some officers quit and went home, saying they wouldn't be a part of all of that, but most of the officers stayed. So, do I think so? Yeah. Sadly.
Well, that makes me very sad because, I don't know.
It would take a huge uprising, people standing up to protect our veterans who were programmed, brainwashed into thinking that they were fighting for our freedoms and our rights, blah, 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 in the Middle East and other countries. People still, we have so many holidays that honor our veterans here in the United States each year. People, fly the American flag, have them on their trucks and all of that sort of thing. I think if, though, that they did start firing on our veterans, that there would be a huge uprising, which is probably why they didn't use the rubber bullets and such on them, just the water hoses and the mace and the pepper spray and stuff. But I do agree that had more veterans stayed there, although I understand why they didn't, because, there really wasn't the accommodations for as many as showed up. And some of them are going to other pipeline protests as well. Just not in the numbers that they showed up at Standing Rock, because they were upward of like 5,000. And, we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of veterans, and more every year. And the treatment that they're getting, and the current government's wanting to cut back on veteran benefits, would also bring more veterans out. Huh?
I thought they were actually trying to increase the benefits for veterans. I thought there was some move to increase it. It's shocking.
There was talk prior to the election, but the talk currently is just the opposite.
Really?
They talk a good talk until they get in.
Yeah, as usual.
So it is my hope that more and more people do wake up and discover what is going on, what all of the ramifications are. And I think even though it seems that no one's listening, at least not to the indigenous people, that are the primary protectors of the water and the land and the air here in the U.S., like our current president said, he didn't get one phone call, one email against the pipeline, which we all know is crap. Yeah.
Well, he might not have got it. It might not have been passed on to him.
Well, I do know that the phone lines to the White House that was given out were disconnected.
Right.
So, if you've got, and he has Twitter and stuff, and I'm sure lots of people were tweeting him as well. Yeah. Then there's the Facebook page and all that. So I think that it was just all bull. And even though a lot of his stuff, I'm sure, is filtered coming in, not so much filtered going out, it makes me wonder, do they even care about what people think anymore? If the majority of people stand up, or even a large amount stand up, write emails, send actual letters, telephone. I don't know that any of them are listening because they can't hear because they got all that money stuffed in their ears.
Yeah. I don't think the messages are getting through to the right people. I think it's been blocked.
Well, who are the right people? If you can't get through to your congressmen and your senators and the president, who can you get through to? I mean, other than doing things that are going to get everybody arrested and imprisoned for life, So I am concerned, and I do think that there's got to be a solution to all of this and a way to stop. But how do you get to them, especially when even the judges are making decisions for the corporations against all the laws?
That's right. I really think it comes down to rank and file armed forces and police. I think that's where we've got to hit them. I mean, you know, we know they're listening to us.
Oh, yes.
I certainly hope they are.
Everybody says they are. WikiLeaks says they are. Snowden says they are.
I hope they are. Honestly, I hope they are, because if they're listening, I mean, whoever's listening is not going to be at the top of the pyramid. They're going to be fairly well down the pyramid, and they've got kids, you know, and they're going to have to drink the water as well. So I hope they're listening. I hope they're taking notes. I hope they're passing on to each other, and all the departments are going to gradually wake up. I mean, that Steve Pezinik, did you watch any of his videos?
No.
He's an ex-intelligence.
I have listened to some of them.
Yeah. And they said that there was a massive revolution going on in the intelligence services, you know, that were fed up with all the child abuse and the paedophilia and the blackmail and the pollution of the environment, and there was going to be a big revolution. I haven't seen it yet.
Exactly, and that's why I stopped listening, is because, you know, they all say this kind of stuff, but we don't see any evidence of it, so... I mean, of the arrests, I mean, and the other stuff, yes, we see lots of evidence on what's happening, but we don't see much evidence on what they say is happening to stop it, to stop them, to arrest them. We don't see any of that evidence. And until I see evidence, it's just another tall tale to me.
I was really hopeful. I thought there was going to be something happening there. I don't know if it is or not. Maybe it is happening and we can't see it. But
one would think that you'd hear something from someone other than just the talking heads that say it's going on.
And you can't see any other way forward, Colleen. Can you see another way forward apart from? I mean, the Secret Services know where the buggers live, don't they? You know, the abusers. You know, the chief financial people. They are known. They know where they live. So really, they're the only ones that can do anything about it.
Right. But how do we get them to act? I mean, and as you said, you know, it's not going to be the top echelons of the military per se that stand up. And I'm not sure how many that are actually still in the military can, because after all, if they buck the system, they can bring them up on charges that is long time in the brig, so to speak. But it's going to take branches of the military, all of them, to do it. And I keep saying, if our people in the military really are doing the honorable thing and protecting people, the real people's rights and lives and freedoms, then they're gonna be at home fighting the corporations and the governments that are paid by those corporations against all the damage that the corporations are doing. Otherwise, they're just fighting for the corporations. If they're not fighting for the people, they're fighting for the corporations. That's my thoughts. As much as I hate to say it, I don't see any other way.
No, I can't see any other way. That's the only way forward I can see. I mean, you know, we can get out on the street and march all we like, but unless we've got the support of the armed forces and the police, we're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
I can't see it.
And if they're arresting the people that are voicing their opinions and holding signs and standing in the way of those big machines that are drilling and tearing up the earth, then as long as they're protecting the corporations, the voices don't matter, because they're making protesting jailable federal offenses, felonies. North Dakota even tried to pass a law saying that it was legal to run over protesters who were in the street.
Yeah, I remember that.
It didn't go through.
No.
But the very fact that they thought that was an okay thing to try and make a law is astounding. What kind of mindset thinks that that's okay? Simply because somebody is saying something you don't like, it's okay to run them over and even kill them.
It's the same mindset that owns slaves and that, chops down trees all day long. It's the same mindset. It's the boys don't cry man's mindset, basically.
Well, I think it's worse than that.
Well, yes, it is worse than that, obviously, but that's what it comes down to, as a male, to be what is called a man in this culture, you have to forget your feelings. You have to, and a person who cannot feel is known as a psychopath. And that's what it takes to be what is called a man in this culture. You have to become a psychopath.
Well,
you have to cut off. Well, you do. I mean, imagine,
I understand what you're saying. The whole big boys don't cry thing has been in effect for quite a while. As a matter of fact, when my twins were young, if my daughter cried, that was okay. He picked her up and hugged her and all that stuff. And if my son got hurt and cried, and they're the same age, then he'd dust his bottom off and say, big boys don't cry. Buck up. And I went unglued over that one. But you are right about that. And the fact that our society, if you feel anything, then there's something wrong with you. Go to the doctor, get a pill, so that you're not depressed or, you're not sad and all of that. And with everything that's going on, lots of people are becoming depressed when the jobs are gone and you can't work and you're broke and you have trouble feeding your family. You're going to have emotions that set in. And it's natural, but to say that there's something wrong with you because you're having those feelings, so take a pill, or get a lobotomy or whatever, then there's something wrong with the system.
Deeply wrong. Yeah. Yeah. People who are designated as insane in this culture, I think, are much more sane than the ones who are mostly designated as sane, who carry on doing what they're doing without feeling and deny their feelings. That's insanity to me.
Oh, yes. And if you're not angry over the stuff that's going on, that's a problem, because you should be angry. When you see that they're polluting the land and the air and the water, and that all of those things you took for granted all your life, you can't any longer, and your whole income, if you're lucky enough to have one, is going to go toward buying water, and poison food and blah, 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 then if you're not angry, then you got a problem, a real problem, and a pill ain't going to fix it.
Well, I've been angry pretty much all my life, Colleen. And I got involved in the protest movement, and they said I was a violent, aggressive male because I was expressing my anger about these issues. And I campaign on my own now. I'm a solo effort now. I don't campaign in groups anymore because of that. I got completely isolated and ostracized by all these people who said, we've got to be all peaceful and fluffy. Well, I don't know. I don't know where to go at the moment. I still think theatre is the way forward, telling stories, parables, like the man, Jesus, he told parables. That's how he used to teach. I still think that's probably the best way to teach this stuff. We can talk about theories about fracking and philosophy and law, but unless it's actually real and alive for people so that they engage in it emotionally and experience it, it's so much dry talk, isn't it? I really want to get to, I'm so disorganized and useless about these things, but I've got so many ideas and I don't know how to implement them. But radio theatre, imagine if we had a group call on Skype with some actors, could be all over the world, and did a radio play as a group call and recorded that. How would that be?
Well, we have discussed this several times. It's a matter of getting it organized and put together. I think it's a great idea if we can get it done. I think that's going to take a lot on your part, too. You know, I can provide the venue, but as far as organizing it and all of that, I can't do that.
Any organizers out there, get in touch. Need a producer, someone who can pull people together. I've got the ideas. Colleen's got the venue. Can we get an organizer to help us organize this? And I don't know how to. I haven't got a foggiest idea how to organize it. I really haven't.
Well, one, I think if it's radio theater, there's kind of got to be a script. Other than just a lot of people.
I've written a script, Colleen. It's called The Sleeping of Beauty. Did I mention that before?
Yes.
I probably might have done. And did I mention how I produced it as a piece of theatre?
I think that you did, but go ahead and reiterate.
I wrote this story. It takes about an hour and a half to tell it, going quite fast. As a piece of theatre, it's about 2.5 hours. And we produced this thing in 2.5 days. A 2.5 hour piece of theatre in 2.5 days. I mean, what I did, I had no idea what to do. I told the story to this bunch of people, about 30 people, none of whom had any expertise in theatre. I told the story to them, and then I didn't know what to do, so I said, okay, now you guys tell me the story. So they had to work together to tell the story back to me. This all took about 3 or 4 hours altogether. And by the time they told the story back to me, they had to work together to do that, because some of them remembered some bits and some remembered other bits and put it all together. And by the time they'd done that, everybody knew the story quite well. And during that process, it became completely obvious who was going to play which part. So there was no sort of squabbling about who was going to be the lead part. It was completely obvious who was going to play which part. So by the time that had been decided, I knew which people had to be in each scene together. So I said, okay, you guys are in that scene together. You guys are in that scene together. You guys are in that scene together. Sit down in the groups and write the script, which is exactly what they did. And while they were writing the script, they were making the props and the costume at the same time. So because they wrote the script themselves around the theme, I had the basic story. They didn't need to rehearse it because they wrote it. So I was thinking something along those lines, where we improvise the script together in the group call and then write it ourselves in that group call and then just perform it. Rather than having long processes of people having to, if I had to write a script with all the words of everybody as they spoke in turn, everybody would have to learn that. And it takes quite a long time to learn a script like that. So I'd rather do it and have people bring in their own words to it. So they don't, for a start, that people feel their own words much better than they're going to feel my words. That I say, well, okay, you guys have got to say this and you've got to say that. It's much better if people say their own words. They have their own feelings and their own emotions in those words, and they're much more engaged with the process. So I think there are many advantages to doing it that way. But that's just a basic kind of, I don't know, if we could get a bunch of people together in a Skype call, that would be a good start, who are interested in doing something.
You're right.
Any volunteers?
I don't know about right at this moment. Here it's, I don't know. This will be recorded and will be put up on YouTube. So we are asking for volunteers. We need to let them know who to contact to put this together, or if they're interested in helping or being a part of. You can contact me at Haggie B, B-E, Haggiebe at gmail.com. Do you have an email address, Nick?
I do. My email address is ecotort@gmail.com. That's ECO, eco, tort, T-O-R-T, all one word, ecotort@gmail.com. That's my email address. Or Facebook. My name on Facebook is Nicholas, Nicholas, and then a space, and then Clare, Clare. Private message me on Facebook anytime. That's probably better than email for me. I'm always on Facebook. Emails can get lost. I get so much junk email. Maybe I should start another email address just for this, actually. Maybe that's what I'll do.
Okay, I put that in the chat that they can. I put Nicholas, Nicholas, space Clare, on Facebook, and that you can be private messaged there on Facebook.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if I can't do that straight away, can I? I'm going to make another email address, Aggie.
Okay.
I think I'll call it ecotortheatre@gmail.com. But I'm not sure if I can get, I don't know how quickly can I do that? I wonder if I can do that. Search mail. That's not what I want. How do you make another account quickly on Gmail?
You just go to Google and
add account. Set up email, Google.
Sorry guys, I'm typing too.
Add your account, sign in to get the most. Add a field device.
I'm making a list also of all your links and such for future references.
Oh, create a new account, that's what I wanted to do. Right, really try.
And remember too, people, this will be radio theater, so you don't have to have a costume or be all cleaned up or even dressed. Just please don't tell us if you're not. We don't care.
That's right.
All we need's your voice and your thoughts, okay?
Right. ecotalktheatre@gmail.com. Oh, next. Oh, God.
In the meantime, I suggest that people, I don't want to say Google, but in your little search thingy on your browser, find out more about fracking and the dangers of fracking to not only the water, but to the soil and the air, because there are implications of air pollution because of it. There are implications of also it causing earthquakes, not to mention the harm it does to all the wildlife, and not even wildlife, but your pets, your dogs, your cats, whatever might be drinking water or digging into the soil that the fracking stuff has leaked into.
Or breathing the air it's leaking up through.
Oh, yes, lots of respiratory problems. I know in
terrible.
Flint, Michigan, and up around Kalamazoo River, lots of respiratory problems from that. I've heard the same up in Pennsylvania, where they have a gas leak thing going on.
The best resource is honestly that PSE Healthy Energy site. That's the best resource I know for all the research that's actually on our side.
Okay, and that's PSEHealthyEnergy.org again. And go through that.
And the links from there, you'll find loads of stuff from there. I've got a group on Facebook called Fracking Aquifers. That's Fracking. and then aquifers, AQUIFERS, aquifers.
And that's on Facebook?
There's loads of stuff on there. But PSE Health Energy is much more formal research than on fracking aquifers, to be honest. That's it's just a lot of opinion on fracking aquifers, but it's based on fact. But if you want proper scientific research, PSE Healthy Energy is the place, I think, to go. When they're doing surveys of leakages of methane at all stages, from the well itself, the pipelines, to leaky cookers in the kitchen, and the pipelines underneath the streets of the city. They've got graphs showing how much is leaking everywhere, and it's surprising how much is leaking everywhere. It's just everywhere. It leaks. It's a terribly dysfunctional system.
Mm-hmm.
The only function it seems to be really effectively fulfilling is the pollution of water and air. I mean, you think about carbon monoxide for a moment, which causes permanent brain damage. It comes out of car exhaust pipes at child height. The petrochemical industry has successfully poisoned 3 generations of children, urban children, with carbon monoxide, causing permanent brain damage. Just for a start, that's what they've done. Just for a start, they've poisoned 3 generations of urban children with carbon monoxide poisoning. And, you can talk about catalytic converters and lead-free petrol, but a catalytic converter does not become effective until the car is warm, until the engine is warm and the exhaust pipe is warm, and that takes 5 miles. So any journey under 5 miles, you're still polluting as much the atmosphere as you were without a catalytic converter. And in this country, 80% of car journeys are under 5 miles. So really, the catalytic converter is making absolutely a negligible difference to any pollution. So there's still children getting polluted by carbon monoxide, even though they're saying we're all eco-friendly now and it's all clean. It's not. It's a lie. It's very misleading what they're telling people.
That's no surprise.
Another thing, it takes 100 times more pollution to make a car than ever comes out of the exhaust pipe in the entire car's lifetime. That's a fact that's not mentioned. I mean, it seems to be that, a country's economic success is measured by how many cars it can sell, by how many instruments of permanent brain damage to children it can sell. That's the measure of a country's economic success. They just come out with, in this country, they said, the sales of cars have gone up this year. We must be doing really well.
Hmm. That's amazing.
I don't know what to say.
Unemployment is so high, I don't know who the heck's buying the cars.
Well,
I don't think it's Americans.
They're buying them on loans, aren't they?
Well, a lot of cars that people are opting to lease the cars rather than buy them.
Yeah.
So perhaps the leasing companies are buying the cars because a lot of people have figured out it's better in the long run to just rent the darn things for a year or 3 than it is to buy them, because once they buy them, it's about time to take them into the shop, have them completely redone, because, they're all built to last until the last payment.
Yeah, and then they fall apart. The wheels fall off after that.
Mm.
Yeah. But on another subject, I just come into my mind about interest. But it's one of my pet peeves is that the banks making money out of nothing and charging interest on it.
Right. You want to hold on to that? I'm sorry. You want to hold on to that thought, and we'll take a little break and come back in about 5 minutes and get back to that.
Yeah. Fine. Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, and we are back now. I think.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, fraud, criminal fraud. The definition of criminal fraud is pretending something is something which it's not, in order to gain financially or to make someone else lose financially. Well, pretending virtual money is real is pretending something is something which is not, because it's not real. And lending it out and charging interest on it, the banks are gaining and everybody else is losing financially. So the entire banking system is based on fraud. I think we mostly know that. But let's make that information public to everybody. I mean, we all know that here, but everybody needs to know that. How thin the ice is, the whole corporate edifice is skating on extremely thin ice. It's so empowering, or it could be so empowering if everybody just knew that. It's virtual money in a computer. It doesn't even exist. The fact it's virtual money means there is no economic reason for anything. It's virtual money. It's not real. There is no, for example, there is no real economic reason why we cannot feed, clothe, house, educate, and employ every single person on this planet and be totally eco-friendly right now. We've got the technology, we've got the resources, we've got the skills to do all those things and to make a beautiful planet to live on for ourselves and future generations. And the only reasons we are given why we cannot do those things are economic reasons based on money which does not exist. There is no economic reason. How about that? You know, why can we not make that information public?
Well, I think we can. And little by little, people listen and wake up and go, oh, wow, I never thought of that. We can get people to step outside that box, not climb into another one.
Yeah.
And as you say, maybe the radio theater is the way to go with it. Just little skits put up on YouTube and share, and like.
Well, I can't. I've been trying for years and years and years to get theatre together to do this job. And I bought marquees, I bought a truck, I bought a sound system, I bought wind generator and solar panels. I had everything, and I couldn't get people to do it. And then I just gave up after about 10 years trying that. I gave up and I thought, well, I can't do that. I'm just going to campaign on my own. And just lately, I thought of this idea of radio theatre, which means you don't have to get everybody together in the same room because we can do it on Skype with a group call. We could have people all over the world. We could have an international radio theatre group. No one's doing it. No one is doing that. No one, as far as I know, is doing group call Skype radio theatre. I haven't come across it, and I've looked quite hard. I don't think anyone's doing it, and I've been talking about it for at least 6 months now.
Well, I think that the idea that we can get people from all over the world to do this is excellent, because these problems are not special to the U.S. or to the U.K., but these things are going on in Australia, South America, all over Europe, and I don't know about China and Japan and Russia and all that stuff. I know some countries have banned fracking, and even those, they would be great to get in, into the conversation.
Definitely.
Because they were successful.
Yeah.
And maybe have some fresh ideas that we've hit our head against the wall so many times. So I do think it's an excellent, excellent idea. And even if people are adding to the conversation, sending little recordings that we could add to, the thing. You don't have to say, okay, at a specific time, because we can't all get together at the same time, because, Australia's 12, 13, maybe 14 hours different than I am, and you're 5 hours different than I am, and people on the East Coast and the West Coast, and it's sometimes difficult to get us all together at the same time.
Sure.
But if you do a little research and you've got a little spiel you want to do it, and we can put it all together. I edit audio, and can splice and put together and all that kind of stuff. So that's an idea as well. Send it to me in an email or on Skype or something.
Have you seen my lumberjack story? You have, haven't you, Colleen?
Oh, yes, several times. I like it a lot.
Oh, that doesn't even need the visual part of it. Just the audio part. I've listened to it myself with the video turned off.
Right. I can download that as just an audio.
Just an example, that people could, listen to it maybe and think, well, I could do something like that. I could do something better than that. Maybe someone could think that and do something. I mean, it's a good little story, but there's certainly a lot of room. That was only ever meant to be a pilot version. I've always wanted to get other people involved.
Mm-hmm.
I would love a woman to write a part for his wife. She hardly speaks. I didn't really presume to put words in her mouth. I put a couple of words in her mouth, but I mean, there's a whole side of it that's not even explored, from the woman's side. Mm-hmm. It's a day in the life of a lumberjack, but what about a day in the life of a lumberjack and his wife? Or, I don't know. There's so many places we could go. Basically, the bottom line is that people's state of mind has changed from 40 years ago. There's no problem. 40 years ago, they'd say, there's no problem. What are you talking about? You're an idiot. To now, there's a problem with the environment, but I can't do anything about it. I've got to pay my mortgage. I don't want to think about it. It's changed from there is a problem into it's changed from there is not a problem into there is a problem, but I can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And before anything is going to change, that state of mind has got to change again. Before anything on the physical level, before people are going to start working to make a beautiful place to live collectively, that state of mind has got to change. It's got to change from there's a problem, we can't do anything about it, into there's a problem, we can do something, let's do it.
Yeah, you might have a job and you might have a nice house and all that stuff, but if this stuff keeps up, you're going to be spending your entire paycheck on fresh water for your family. Not only to cook with and to drink, but to bathe in.
You're lucky.
Most of us like warm baths, warm showers, and that opens the pores so that all the pollutants that go into your body go in there faster.
Yeah.
You'll be bathing your babies and your children and all that and all that stuff. So a whole bunch of your paycheck's going to be going to water. And you're still going to have to pay the damn water bill that's coming into your house, even though you can't drink it.
Yeah.
Or they'll condemn your house because you don't have running water.
God, isn't that outrageous? I mean, these tiny homes they're making all over America. They're making little tiny houses. I think they call them tiny houses. Have you seen them?
Oh, yeah, I love them.
And so do I. And now they're trying to make them illegal.
Yeah.
Make it a crime to build a tiny house that's not on grid. It's off grid.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's connected. Unless it's got foundations and it's connected to the grid, it's a crime.
Yeah.
How the blimmin' hell.
There's got to be corporations behind all of that, people. A lot of people don't want to believe that the corporations write our laws. But you have to look and think of, okay, who is this law benefiting? If it's not benefiting the people, think, who the hell is it benefiting? It's some large corporation, pharmaceutical companies, oil companies, insurance companies, a home builders association, because, you can build a kit to build these tiny homes for about...
I just want to pull you up on one word there, Colleen. You used the word law. It's actually legislation they're creating. They're not creating law, they're creating legislation.
Well, right, and we have to get past that. There is a difference between law and illegal legislation.
Unlawful legislation. When they pass a piece of legislation, they make something legal, right? They make it legal to frack, right? But they cannot make it lawful to frack.
And there is a difference. See, we tend to think that legal and lawful are the same, and they're not. And in my speech, forget that.
Exactly. And this is a very important distinction to make. They are making unlawful legislation. The government is knowingly making unlawful legislation. And that means the government is criminal.
Mm-hmm. And they're very, very fond of saying, I didn't do anything illegal. I followed the law. That's contradictory. That one
is, absolutely.
statement.
They could say, I didn't do anything illegal. I followed unlawful legislation.
Yeah, they're not going to say that.
Right?
And if they do, they're going to cut out the un.
That's the bottom line. And as I say about the police, they are paid to uphold the law. They're not paid to uphold unlawful legislation made by a criminal government. They are paid to uphold the law. And this is what needs to be pointed out to them, because they are disempowered as much as anybody else. I keep on about this, but it's so important. They really don't know where to put themselves when you point this out to them. They are paid to uphold the law, and the law is you do not injure your neighbour. And without that law, there's no society.
Right.
It's as simple as that. But all the legislation they make is so complicated. I mean, talking about Brexit, right? They've now announced that they're going to spend the next X number of years converting all the European legislation into what they call British law. Well, the whole point of leaving Europe was to get rid of all that blimmin' stupid bureaucratic legislation. I thought that's why Britain voted to leave Europe. And yet, now the government is saying they're going to codify all those. I mean, they passed 4,000 laws, 4,000 pieces of legislation in 1 year. My God. I mean, we only need one law, and it's do no harm. That's the only law we need.
Yep.
Everything else goes to that context. If it causes harm, then it's unlawful.
And it needs to be spelled out. Causes harm to whom? Because now they're passing legislation that protesting causes harm to the corporation.
Right.
Financial.
They're talking about financial harm. Well, the financial harm is virtual money. So it's easy to knock that one out of the water. You see what I'm saying? It's not real harm, it's virtual harm.
Oh, I understand that. How they'll get around that, I don't know, because they're masters at word games. That's why they have liars in there.
We have to just keep it simple, Colleen.
Oh yeah, I know. We do. They don't seem to think. They think as convoluted as they can make it so that nobody understands it except them, and then it's all, how do you interpret that?
Yeah.
And
well, that poster that I made about the police oath, I was told in no uncertain terms that the legal team in this country don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look in Fracking Aquifers, it's the pinned post in Fracking Aquifers, and I'll just get it up and I'll quote what I wrote by it. Where is it? Right. I have been informed that the anti-fracking legal team don't like this post. I wonder why. I rather suspect it is because the argument is so simple they will all be out of a job. And I think that's one of the main reasons my campaign to make the common law public has been unsuccessful. I'm up against the entire legal system. They don't like it. It's too simple for them. Just to say do no harm, that's going to put a lot of lawyers out of business, isn't it? With their prevarication, their procrastination.
Well, and a lot of people who go into law these days go into corporate law because there's a lot more money to be made quickly.
But again, it comes down to that pyramid, doesn't it? The higher up they go at the pyramid, the fewer people there are. We've got to get the base of the pyramid to take away the power from the top.
Mm-hmm. So that it
and even
topples over.
There are people on our side. There are people on our side at the top. They're not all the people at the top. I think there's a black lodge and a white lodge, to be honest. And, well, don't you? I mean,
I don't know. To me, it seems like once they get to the top, they're dirty. They have to get dirty to get to the top.
Yeah.
They might start out with good intentions, but in order to get very high up that ladder, they have to do a lot of dirty stuff. And then are under the thumb of whomever. Because, you know, if they don't do what they're told to do, then it's like, well, then I'll put out these videos or, you know, whatever. I'll put out this information and ruin you and your family and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to, isn't it?
It is, sadly. And, you know, none of us are perfect. We've all made mistakes along the way. And they, you know, because they listen to everybody, because they watch everybody, because they have cameras and everything that says it's smart, you know, stuff that is done innocently can be photoshopped, audio can be tampered with to make your innocent, whatever it was, look really, really bad. And this the darkness out there, man. You just want to hit them with an iron skillet. Hard. But being nonviolent.
There has to be a way forward. There has to be.
Yeah, there has to be. And we have to find it. And, you know, a lot of people say, well, you know, that a lot of it's intent, your intent, the intent that you put out there, and I understand that, the energetics of it all. But at the same time, I think there's got to be some action along with that intent.
Yeah.
And we want to do it wisely without doing harm. And that's, you know, trying to put it all together is the difficult thing, especially because when you find out all of this stuff, first you go into this what the fuck kind of thing. And there's the shock and a denial, and then there's an anger, and then hopefully you settle down and you still have that righteous indignation, but what do you do with that? How do you turn that into positive action? I think, for me anyway, watching the protectors at Standing Rock, most of them anyway, and how they handled it is a good guideline for many of us, you know, because a lot of those had to be rightfully angry at what they saw, what they felt, what they experienced. And although a lot of people would have reacted negatively, violently, most of them did not.
I was totally humbled by that. I mean, really, I look at the way we protest in this country and the way that was done, and it really brought joy to my heart to see the way they were protesting without any, you know, as you say, the vast majority of it was not even verbal insults or, you know, it was peaceful, really genuinely peaceful. And on the one hand, the police in America seem to be much more vicious than they are here against protesters. I mean, they used to be like that here back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. The peace convoy, the travellers, you know, the New Age travellers. I was part of that movement, living in buses and trucks, travelling around in groups together. I mean, some of it got out of order and it was stamped on viciously by the police, but they only did it once. And they can't really do it anymore. They can't behave like that anymore. They lost so much credibility. And I think the American police at Standing Rock, whoever they were, whether they were police or whether they were whatever, those Blackwater or whoever they were, they're not going to be able to get away with that too much longer. We have live streaming. I think they lost a lot of public goodwill by doing what they did at Standing Rock, the police. Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to have to step back and take another look.
Well, on the upside, more and more people are moving away from their televisions to get their news and are going to alternative media. But at the same time, a lot of the alternative media has become infiltrated as well.
Certainly has.
So it's difficult, you got to learn to be discerning, and that's not something really that I think can be taught so much as experienced. And, you make mistakes and then you move on. You learn, hopefully, from those mistakes. But the point is that people are finding out that alternative media, or that mainstream media, their scripts are written by the corporations, by the very corporations that are doing the damage, writing the law, the legislation. So the news you get, a lot of people are calling it fake news. Well, I don't think it's fake. I think it's false. And I think there's a difference between fake and false, because it's like these are actual events, but that's not exactly the way it happened. Yes, this is going on, but the ones we're calling the bad guys are not the bad guys. They're painting it with an entirely new brush. And then you got paid agitators coming into these protests, and they're only paid to wreak havoc and do violent things, destroy things, so that it can be blamed on the protesters, the real ones, the peaceful ones, so that it discredits the whole protest thing. And that's a problem right now, trying to get the word out to people. And some people, well, if it's on the news, if it's on the TV, then that's got to be the truth, because they wouldn't lie to us.
They wouldn't do that, would they?
Mm-hmm. And there was a time when you could, to a large degree, depend on the news to tell you pretty much the truth. Once upon a time, unless it was about war or something, then of course it was always slanted. But even back, the 60s and 70s, and the Native Americans were protesting the corporations, the government coming in and stealing their land because they found, uranium or gold or something on their land. So they came in and stole the land, and there were protests then with the whole American Indian movement, AIM. And of course that went to the news and was distorted as well. And I think that's where they learned a lot of the stuff, how to program the people, how to brainwash the people, how to give them on your side. And it's just gotten worse.
Yeah, it's been developed rampantly, hasn't it?
It's a science now.
Lies, yeah.
But I think...
But still, the truth, if we can stick to the simple truth without getting led down these complicated avenues of misinformation, just keep it simple. I think that's the way. It's keep it simple. Do no harm. Mm-hmm. Keep coming back to that.
Yeah. Well, the drone footage is excellent, and the cell phone, live feeds, you see it as it's happening, unedited. That's an excellent way to put the information out there. put it on all of the, what do they call it? Social media, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, Twitter, whatever. That way it's, if it's a live footage, it can't very well be edited and all of that sort of thing. And
that's right.
If the sound isn't all that great and the picture isn't right in focus, where a lot of this other stuff on the mainstream just so happens that the camera was in the right spot at the right time, and great shots, that's probably not so real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the same actors again and again.
Yeah. All over the world. They're here, they're there, they're everywhere. Some of them, the one gal even wore the same bracelet in one, and then several months later, she's somewhere else across the country, happened to be at the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the wrong time. But she's wearing the same jewelry.
It's crazy. It's crazy how they get away with it so much.
Mm-hmm, and that people don't notice. It's almost, it's like they're putting it in your face and laughing because people are buying it,
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Taking the mickey, they are. Big time.
Mm-hmm. Wanting more.
We just got to keep on keeping on, isn't it? Really, we can't give up.
Right. And, we need more people involved too, and I think for the longest time, I posted a lot of stuff on Facebook, and friends and family would unfriend me. But then other people would start liking and sharing. And often they were people that I never thought would, So slowly people are waking up to the facts. Makes them look at the TV news and go, what? And maybe do their own research. So it seems at this point to be a slow process, but they say that the awakening is speeding up. So we can be hopeful in that. And as this younger generation goes, many of them have been on MySpace and Facebook and YouTube, and they're on there a lot. And a lot of them stream their own music and stuff. So I'm hoping that they'll start their own stations. Get their group of friends together and start their own stations and start talking about this and start putting up YouTubes and all that stuff about stuff that's going on instead of stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, kitties and puppies and babies are nice to look at and fun and let you sit back and kind of relax a little bit. But we need to start talking about the stuff that's affecting our lives and our children's lives and the food we eat and the water we drink and the air we breathe and all of that stuff. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. It's the number one priority. It has to be. Colleen, could we have a break for 10 minutes? I need to go and do something and come back. Would that be okay?
Sure. Alrighty, and I think we're back. Nick, are you there?
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Okay, yes, now I can hear you. We are live.
Okay, sorry about that. Well, where were we? We were talking about possible remedies.
Mm-hmm. Social media and such.
One of the things we need to overcome is the issue of blame, I think. Because while everybody's blaming each other, we're never going to work together and sort it out. I've over the years, I've come to
a kind of a rationalization, which for me makes 80% of blame disappear. There's certain issues I can't, forgive, if you like, but most of it, I mean, look at, say, the police, right? Loads of people hate the police. I don't hate them. I understand how they've got misled into the situation they're in, and they're doing the exact opposite of what they started out wanting to do. Most of them. I mean, obviously there are bullies who just wanted to go in there to be bullies, and that's probably a good place, to be a bully. If you want to be a bully, is to join the police or something. But most of them, I think, join with good intentions. But the issue of blame, if it's true that everybody wants to be happy, then anything we do which interferes with the happiness of people around us is going to make us less happy. Because we can't be happy while we're surrounded by unhappy people. So if I want to be happy and I'm doing something which makes people around me unhappy, it's going to make me unhappy. That has to be a mistake. And if it's a mistake, there can't be any blame. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does to me.
So we could write that into a story about some realization, how somebody comes to that realization, that it's a mistake. I don't know all of it, but I think probably at least 80%, probably 90% of the abuse in the world is a mistake, because it's not making the abusers happier. It's making them unhappy. It's making them miserable. It can't be making them happy. I can't possibly see how it can be making someone happy to pollute the water supply of the planet, or to abuse children, or to blackmail people. How does that make people happy? Doesn't make people happy. Has to be a mistake. And if it's a mistake, there's, at least if we can't get rid of all the blame, I think we can get rid of a lot of blame by looking at the things that are going on this planet as a series of mistakes, and not holding people responsible for their actions, but not blaming them for them. I think there's a difference, the distinction between blaming somebody for something, because if I blame somebody for something, they're going to try and blame someone else. They're going to try and blame me. It's not my fault, it's your fault, or it's their fault, or it's somebody else's fault. It's not my fault. Whereas if it's like more along the lines of, we've made a mistake, what are we going to do about it? There's less defensiveness on the part of the people who are responsible for whatever's going on. But if I was to meet a multi-billionaire person who's responsible for fracking, for example, and I was to meet up with that person and say, "You evil capitalist, rah rah rah," I could swear and shout at him all day long, and he's just going to call his security guards. But if I can explain to him, what's going on, or her what's going on, and put it across as a mistake which we need to remedy, there's at least a possibility of a window of opportunity to discuss the issue there. Whereas with the blaming attitude, there is no real possibility at all. So it's maybe not a cure-all, but it's a step in the right direction to open negotiation between those of us who see there's something wrong and those of us who think there's nothing wrong and it's perfectly all right. We have to reach those people, and by blaming them, we're distancing them further from us and from our viewpoint. Again, I think theatre is a way to do that. I keep coming back to theatre all the time in my mind. It just seems to be the way forward. It's the use of imagination to create reality, and everything we've created in this world has come out of someone's imagination. Images in the mind. I mage, image, I mage, I the magician, mage, I magician, I mage, I imagination, imagination. It's all the same word. It's all magic. What we've created in this world. It's not good magic, a lot of it, but it is magic. And I think we can create much better magic. We can create much better things. We can use words to spell better images. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm
Sorry.
considering things.
Mm.
One being, it's difficult to point out problems such as oil leaking into water intentionally and not place blame.
Yeah.
As I say, because you're angry and you want to grab them by the collar and stick their head in the oily water. But you don't, usually. For me too, 'cause my Irish gets up and, and I talk often about swinging that iron skillet. I don't think I ever have in my life, but I want to sometimes. And learning to reword what you want to say so that it's not so confrontational, is a difficult thing. Well, for me anyway. Some people seem to just be able to do it quite well. And it takes thoughtfulness as to how to present the problem. Maybe that's something that we all have to learn. And it seems these days there's not so many social niceties in society. You see the road rage and all of that sort of thing. And, you get the Black Fridays, the sales right before the Christmas season, where everybody's fighting, literally, over some doll or something that they can get for a few bucks cheaper.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I don't think that this is all gonna resolve itself within the next year or so. It's gonna take time. But there's got to be a kind of a re-socialization process of, as you go back to, do no harm. Well, that's not just physical harm.
No, it's not.
It's also in the words that you use, the names that you say about people, the labels, and the blame. Because in this society we seems like we don't blame, take it on ourselves, oh, well, that could be my fault. We try to blame this one and that one and, it can't be us. And I think that that's a mindset that, you hear some of these big corporate kind of people say things like, well, it's your fault for believing me.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, you're the one that told the big whopper, knowing it was a whopper. You can't blame the people that believed you because I was raised that your word is your bond.
Absolutely.
You're only worth how much you keep your word and your truthfulness. And if you didn't have that, then you don't have anything really. And,
that's the way to.
And I always expected everybody to be that way too, that, they were true to their word, and if they told you something that, you could take that to the bank, so to speak. But, it just seems that that's not the case anymore. A couple of years ago, you had the Mean Girls thing on TV shows and all that. The Mean Girls was the big thing. And then the whole gossip thing. That in the schools here in middle school, the big thing was to make up rumors about people. Just make up crap. And that was so much fun for them. And I'm going, really? How would you feel if it was about you? You know, you're ruining someone's reputation as a lark. And I'm like, how the hell does... And that was like a nationwide thing over here.
Really? I didn't think that. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
But it's been done to me. I mean, it's certainly been done to me.
You know, so when there's that kind of thing, and a lot of this started in movies for young teens, preteens, you know, movies and TV shows aimed at the children. And,
really?
You know, as far as that, and I'm kind of off topic a bit, but as far as the media goes, and the whole do no harm, I think that needs to also include crap that the media puts out.
100% for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm quite convinced that, like, talking about the word violence, to violate someone's trust is an act of violence. In other words, to tell a lie is an act of violence. And if we were to look at all of violence taken together, you've got the physical bit of violence, which is somebody hitting somebody, and then you've got all the non-physical violence, you know, the lies, the deceit, the all the rest of it. I think it's like an iceberg. I think probably 80% of violence is not physical. And then someone turns around and hits someone, and that's the person that gets labelled as violent. When all this other violence has been going on for years in that person's life, and they suddenly crack. And I'm not excusing physical violence, but there's reasons for it. It doesn't just happen, you know, without a cause.
Oh, right. You know, and I know kids who have experienced this in school. They've been bullied, and all of a sudden they fight back, and they're the one that gets in trouble.
That's right.
You know, they're the ones that get kicked out of school and everything.
Yeah.
And as I say, a lot of this stuff is going to take a long time to fix. But first we have to become people who think. You know, and because so many people today, it seems, don't think, don't want to think. They want everything spoon-fed to them and tell me what to do, when to do it, you know, how to do it, how high to jump, and all of that stuff. And then go home and turn on the TV and just lay there all night, you know.
Yeah. It's like Pavlov's dog, isn't it? I mean, thinking becomes painful when you know, it's like, you know, you ask that question, which is more serious, the threat of environmental damage or the threat of world war? People say, well, I don't want to think about it. It hurts my head already. You know, don't want to think about it. And it is. Thinking has become associated with pain, because if you do think about the way things are in the world, it is painful. Mm-hmm. There's no question about it.
Well, you also get every time I think, I get in trouble.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because your thoughts are not the established status quo. So if you buck all that, then people say things, you know, oh, you're wrong, oh, you're such a, you know, whatever. It's just your imagination kind of stuff. And the schools don't teach you to think.
No, they don't.
And your jobs don't want you to think. They just want you to do as you're told.
Did you see a message from Now O'Clock just now?
Yeah, I put it in here.
Right. I think it's down to self-interest, that one. All of it's down to self-interest.
Okay, we're going to read the question for those who can't see it.
Sorry. Yeah.
Now O'Clock has asked, how can we change the police culture when so many are corrupt? I think you kind of covered that a few minutes ago.
Well, let's look at self-interest, right? Everybody wants to be happy. The police, everybody, the criminals, everybody wants to be happy, right? That's my starting point. To be happy, you need to be healthy, in general terms, and to be healthy, you need a healthy planet to live on. That's pure self-interest. And it's the pure self-interest of every person on the planet, is to have a healthy planet to live on. Now, when we talk about the environment, what percentage of people will say, oh, people are too selfish to care about the environment? A lot of people say that,
Well,
and it's not true.
To me, if you don't care about the environment, then you're not selfish enough.
Yeah, exactly what I just said, yeah, I agree.
Because selfish means you think about yourself, right?
It's enlightened self-interest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're taught in the Christian religion, I was taught, you know, you mustn't be selfish. Well, I was taught you mustn't lie, and people lying around me and telling lies, and I was told off whenever I told a lie. I was told right off about it, you know, and all my relatives, my family, they weren't being honest, and they're still not honest, to be honest. But, telling the truth is a revolutionary act, isn't it? I mean, it really is, especially in these days. But I think self-interest is where it comes down to. We're not going to suddenly get everybody to be altruistic. But if we can look down that road of self-interest, what is our true self-interest? It's not a car. It's not to have a gas-guzzling house which has got, you know, a little tiny house is great. The smallest the better. The smallest space to heat or to have air conditioned uses less resources. You know, great big mansions and houses. That's not our self-interest, really. Self-interest is to look after the planet we live on. It's got to be number one, and to be and to have happy people around us. That's self-interest. But we're told that self-interest, it's wrong to be selfish. But there's two kinds of selfishness. There's a selfishness which is a small-minded kind of selfishness, and there's a much bigger selfishness. I mean, it is absolutely simple, but it's in everybody's self-interest to have a healthy planet to live on. Couldn't be simpler. And yet we're told that selfishness is having a bigger, better car, a bigger, better house, a bigger, better job, more money, more this, more that. That's selfish. Well, that's not selfish. That's contrary to our self-interest. You know, the more we've got to lose, the more we've got to try and protect it, the more scared we are someone's going to try and steal it off us. That's not going to make us happy. That's not self-interest. That's a perversion. It's a perversion of self-interest. And, this whole thing about being guilty, about trying to achieve what we want in life, the direction of our self-interest has been perverted. It's been subverted. What's the word? Am I
perverted?
Yeah, subverted, perverted, converted,
reverted.
Reverted.
Yeah. Well, it's, I keep saying, if you're destroying your home, then you're not really thinking about yourself. Or if you don't have a very good opinion of yourself if you're destroying your own home. And damage to earth, to the water, to the air, is damaging your home.
Well, that's where the word eco comes from, isn't it? Ecos.
Mm-hmm.
Greek, meaning the house, the home, the garden, the planet. That's where it comes from. Yeah, and we are. We're I think that's actually, the fact that we are actually, somehow we've been led into destroying the planet, separating ourselves from nature, working in a way which is against our human nature, against our cosmic nature. It leaves an emptiness inside us.
Mm-hmm. Which
that
people try to fill with money.
Absolutely. Money, possessions, this and that, status,
mm-hmm.
power over other. And that's the crux of it all, really, is to try and alert people that that's not the way to realised self-fulfillment. We need to realign ourselves with our true selves, with our. Colleen, I'm struggling here.
Well, we do need to realign ourselves to what's important, to what's lasting. You know, people want to leave a legacy, a lasting legacy. Well, some people do. But what kind of legacy do you want to leave? That's the question. I had a thought and I lost it. I don't know how. Well, society today, it's a disposable society. Everything you buy is made to break down before it's paid for or shortly thereafter. You know, we have all these plastic bags, throwaway. Plastic, everything we buy comes in plastic. And we use that term plastic for fake. You know, it's not real. We use that, you know, people are plastic because they're fakes. And if something breaks, we don't fix it. We go out and buy new.
Isn't it funny that word plastic? Plastic, it's all derived from oil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything, you know. You can hardly touch anything that's not from that. But the thing is, you know, is buy. That's the thing, you know. A corporation doesn't want things to last because if things last, then they don't sell as many of them. Because people aren't just continually buying that. And that's the mindset of the whole society for the most part. You know, like I had a little flashlight. Darn thing stopped working. Well, it was only like maybe $4 to buy a new one.
Yeah.
But I took it apart and I saw that one of the little connectors inside it was corroded with rust. So I put some vinegar and baking soda on there and kind of took a toothbrush and cleaned it out and then took a knife and scraped it off. Lo and behold, the darn thing worked again.
Well done.
And it was, you know, like I said, $4. So no big deal, right? But to me, if something's break, see if you can fix the darn thing first, or see if you know somebody who can fix it. Instead of throwing out money, going buying something, and then this one going in the trash and sitting in a garbage dump for years and years and years until it disintegrates and turns into whatever it turns into. But, you know, to me, that's a whole big problem with today's society, is just throw it away.
Well, things are not made to be fixed anymore. They're not made to be taken apart. They're sort of sealed up.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if it breaks, you'll throw it away and get a new one. It's very hard to fix things. I mean, you're lucky to be able to fix that flashlight, to be honest.
A lot of things, you know, cars.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I work on cars and vans and things. I've fixed them, or I've actually got out of it now because it's got so bad that you can't fix things anymore. So I don't work in that area too much anymore. I drive the recovery truck, but I don't get involved in the mechanical fixing of things anymore.
Well, I know. My dad was a mechanic for years. I mean, that's how he raised all of us kids. Was he had a transmission shop, but then they started making cars that were computerized. So you had to have this big, expensive equipment to take the car in and hook it up to the computers, and then send off for this part. That because it was had a computer in it, it was way expensive. And even Dad, after being in the business for 50 years, would talk about, hell, I can't fix these cars these days. And he used to build dragsters from scratch.
I remember when there used to be about 5 or 6 different wires in a car. You know, one to each indicator, one to each brake light, one to each side light, and one to each headlight, and one for ignition. Mm-hmm. And that was about it. You know, now you look at the wiring loom on a car now, there's hundreds of wires there. hundreds of wires. It's crazy.
Yeah, and you got to hook it up to that machine that tells you where the defective wire is and stuff.
Yeah.
That are expensive, yeah. But you're right, things are made to not, as you say, some things there's no screws, there's no nothing in them, you can't take them apart, you can't see what's wrong with them. And, with cell phones even, you can't even open them up to get to a battery now.
No, you can't. It's connected up permanently, so that means that it's always turned on, doesn't it? It's always going to track you. It's always going to find out where you are. So
you're like, what the hell? And it is frustrating, It's like, you just throw it in the trash. And some of the stuff they say, don't throw this in the trash. You have to have a special little baggie or something, and it's got to be labeled, and you have to take it to a certain place, and nobody does that. They all go in the trash anyway.
Yeah. And then you look at the films of the little kids where they've exported all that trash to, all apart and trying to pick the bits of platinum out of them.
Yeah.
And, oh my God.
And the oceans, that are so polluted with all of this stuff, this plastic that's killing dolphins and whales and turtles and, we got mountains of plastic out in the oceans because there's nowhere, on the land to put all this trash. Well, damn it, it's plastic. Melt that crap down. Do something. Build houses with it. Something.
They could use fishing boats and they could catch all that plastic. I mean, obviously the little bits that have turned into micro, tiny little bits in the ocean, you're not going to catch them, but the big bits of plastic could be caught in a net with fishing boats, big fishing boats, with, purse seine nets. You know about the seine nets?
Yeah.
They could catch all that plastic, and they could quite easily catch it and have a processing ship at sea, turning that plastic back into oil and burn it. And they could burn it in the ship and propel that ship and probably refuel other ships from it.
Right. Well, the fact is, we don't really need the oil anyway. So much of it could be replaced with hemp, which is actually good for the environment and for the soil and for people too. And it lasts a long, long, long time.
And it's biodegradable.
Yeah.
Go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know I've seen some videos on some people that are using plastic bottles and stuff, melting it all down, and making bricks and using them for houses, to build houses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is pretty
It's
cool.
not all bad, is it? Oh.
Yes, now a clock says, I accept your point that unless we have healthy environment, no one could be happy, but, what can I say to a policeman now that what can I say to police now that will make them behave as peacekeepers and not antagonists? Hey, guy, you're cute. Huh?
Go on.
Go ahead.
I normally ask them that question. One of the first things I'll start when I have a conversation with a police officer is I'll ask that question: which is more serious, the threat of environmental damage or the threat of world war? And that gets them thinking about it. And they've got to agree they're of a similar magnitude. And then they have to agree that they live on the same planet and so do their kids. And again, it's coming from that point of self-interest. They have to see it for their own benefit, that they need a healthy planet to live on as well. They're stuck. They're in an invidious position, the police. They are paid to do what they're told. They're not allowed to have a public opinion. They do have opinions, but they're not allowed to voice it. They've just got to do it. They're not even allowed to go on strike, like most people are allowed to go on strike. The police aren't allowed to go on strike. I'm going a bit off the subject. I had a conversation with a police officer quite a few years ago, and he said, well, it's not only you lot that have got problems, we've got problems as well. For example, at that point in time, the doctor doctors and the fire brigade were getting a 5% pay increase, and the police were only getting a 1% increase or something like that. And then I was allowed to go on strike. And I said to the copper, I said, why don't you get 10,000 coppers all make an appointment to see your MP in the Houses of Parliament? You're not on strike, you just go into the Houses of Parliament to have an appointment to see your MP. Lo and behold, 2 years later, that's exactly what they did. 10,000 coppers were outside the Houses of Parliament. They weren't on strike, they were having an appointment to see their MP. And they got their pay rise. Well, I helped them do that, indirectly. But it's a question of engaging them the same as everybody else. It's from a point of self-interest. It has to come from... I can't see everybody's suddenly going to become altruistic, but I can see that people could realise their own self-interest, including the police. I think theatre, again, we can rehearse. If we had a little play going on, someone can play the part of the police officer, someone can play the part of the protester, or the person trying to make them behave as a peacekeeper. We could rehearse it. I mean, that's part of the point of theatre, is to rehearse reality in a play, in a dialogue, in a theatrical dialogue, and then you can take that dialogue into the real world and use it with the police that you meet.
Well, I think that's an excellent point, except, well, my thoughts are, in watching a lot of these Standing Rock videos where they are interacting with police, or vice versa, or even protests elsewhere, the police say nothing. You ask them a question, they don't answer you, they look straight ahead. So, and I'm not sure that if it's in that kind of a situation that you will be able to have any communication with that officer at all, or those officers, because it seems that they kind of go into an Autobot, robotic mentality. As a matter of fact, I thought some of them were robots. Some of those on the front lines. I mean, they stood there straight, didn't move, didn't blink, nothing. I'm not sure that that's the time or place to try and have a conversation with them, because, like I said, most of them don't speak, don't even act like they've heard you at all, which is quite frustrating.
No, that is an act. It is an act, Colleen. They do hear, and it does go in. Even if they try and, it does.
Well, if you call them a bad name, they react, but that's it.
No, it does go in. I mean, you can see it. You can see it. It does go in. It definitely goes in. There's very few that are actually impervious. It depends how you speak to them and what you're saying and the tone of voice and everything. If you're blaming them and antagonizing them, they'll just block it out. But because they get that all the time. But if you talk to them in a certain way, I've been talking to the police in this country for 38 odd years, and I'm quite good at it now, although I say myself. I can usually get them to listen. Usually. Now. And even if they're standing there like a robot, you can still see in their eyes, there's a quick little glance, a quick little look, a narrowing of the eyelashes. There's little body language. They can't really completely become robots and not listen. If you're talking about their children and about the fact their children have got to drink water, they can't really ignore that. They can't. They have to drink water, and so do their kids.
Right.
It comes right down to that.
Right.
And they have to have food to eat, and air to breathe, and land to live on. This is the common law. It's common interest. It's common self-interest for everybody on the planet. It keeps coming back down to that. To establish that in their mind, we have things in common.
Yeah, the commonality of it.
Yeah, 2 arms, 2 legs, a brain, a pair of eyes each.
Yeah. Well, we've gone over a bit, because of that last break, but I think that it's time to wrap this up because it's 10:30 my time and got a full day again tomorrow.
Me too.
So,
it's 3:22.
Yeah, 3:22. Yep. Often I'm going till 5, 6 in the morning, and I don't want to have to do that today. I woke up tired.
I'm sorry I've been so disorganised, Colleen. I'm going to actually spend some time before we do this again. I'm going to try and get a bit more organised, a bit more in advance. I was on last night with Barry.
Right.
Barry Prince last.
Right. We played that.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yes. I relay most all of the shows over there on these changing times.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on Haggy Shack twice in a row, 2 nights in a row.
Yep.
I hope I didn't say the same things too many times then.
Well, that's why I say we need to kind of organize a little bit before each show so that we're not saying the same things over and over and over again. Although some things bear repeating. Many of these things too, but different presentations and stuff say the same thing in a different way, kind of thing. And do the theater thing as well. So anyway, we're going to close this off for now. And I know that you're kind of sitting in a garage. You used to call them garage. Still working. And I thank you for coming on.
No, thank you, Colleen, as well for having me. Thank you for putting it on together. I mean, I know how hard you work. I've got no idea how hard you work, but I know you work hard to do this. And it's a lot of work, not just pressing a button and it all goes.
That's true. I wish it was just as easy as a magic wand or something. But then I guess that would be boring. So we thank you all for listening and joining us in the chat room, and hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you want to hear more. And I also hope that some of you that are listening and in the chat room would join us in doing Skype radio theater. That ought to be a lot of fun. Give it some thought. It is not as scary as it may sound.
Colleen, I've got to move my truck because another truck's just parked, and if I don't move, it's going to
tow you away. Talk to you later. Thanks. Alrighty. And that ends Reclaim the Law with Nick St. Clair, also known as Ecotort, in the chat rooms. I thank you all for listening. See y'all later. Bye now.